Small businesses are ready to thrive again and looking for resources to rise to the challenge. That's why Dell Technologies has assembled an all-star lineup of podcasters for a third year in a row to create a virtual conference to share advice and inspiration for small businesses. Whether you're still working remotely or back together again, let Dell Technologies help safeguard your business with modern devices and Windows 11 Pro. Search Dell Technologies Small Business Podference on Odyssey.com, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, starting on May 10th.
What's up? Welcome in, Hoge and Jahns with you. Johnsy, I'm fighting my way through this day, and that White Sox lost last night. But I'm here and I'm ready to talk football and not think about baseball.
You have that resilience that Ryan Poles is apparently looking for. Good for you.
Hey, I'm shooting up draft boards, getting through what we lived through last night.
Only in your own house, I guess.
I will say my wife knew right away that the second that grand slam was hit, she's I'm going to bed. She knows me too well. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody enjoyed Mother's Day. And we have a fun episode for you today. So welcome in.
Jam-packed.
Yes, we got adult. I don't know how many podcasts we've had multiple guests on. We've done it a few times. But back to back, still going through the aftermath of the NFL draft. And follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. You can read Johnsy on The Athletic, theathletic.com/HogeandJahns, where you can also read both of our guests on today's episode. I am at allchgo.com. My weekly Bears Things column is up today. Some stuff on all three phases that the Bears have going on: offense, defense, special teams after rookie minicamp, and you had
special teams.
Yeah, well, I threw it in there. You got to give it equal attention.
It's the third phase. I get it. Yeah,
equal attention. They did draft. Whoa! Your guy, the Fishman, did a whole freaking story on special teams.
I did. He did. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Special teams is very important.
Oh, so now it's
nothing changes the momentum in a game like a muff punt. Nothing.
Right. Trust me,
especially at the high school level,
That's just what you're trying to avoid. It's like just get through the game without a catastrophe happening.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Hashtag Bears special teams. All right. Well, here's what we got going on for you. Bruce Feldman, one of the best college football reporters out there. He's on the sidelines. I got a chance to, run into him on the sidelines a bunch of times when he would have Northwestern games and some of those Big Ten games, Big Ten championship games, things like that. He's a great guy too. And we thought, he's got his freak list. He knows everything there is to know about these guys that get drafted. So we thought he'd be a perfect guest to bring on after the draft to talk about some of these Bears picks that he knows pretty well. So we got him on, and then Nate Tice, who
are we sure?
What?
That he's on?
Nate?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. He's been ducking us now for months, it feels like.
Yeah, we don't know. Bruce is confirmed. Nate, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Nate, he's questionable.
Busy man.
Yeah. He's not full-time at The Athletic.
He is.
So he's too good for us. But no, I think we did sneak him on today's episode. Nate Tice talked a little bit about the quarterbacks and, his guy, Justin Fields, of course. So a lot of good stuff in this episode. So let's do this. Let's jump right in with Bruce Feldman, one of the best college football reporters out there. Here he is, Bruce Feldman. All right, well, joining us now on the Hoge Jahns podcast, one of the best college football reporters out there. He does great work for The Athletic and has some very unique insight on some of these guys that the Bears drafted. Bruce Feldman joins us for the first time. Thanks for jumping on with us, Bruce.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really I love talking drafts, so it's good to kind of see who went where.
Well, let's start at the top, I guess, for the Bears. They didn't have a first-round pick, but they take two guys that from bigger schools that have been on our TVs and we've seen a little bit about. And Kyler Gordon, the corner from Washington, and Jaquan Brisker, the safety from Penn State. So what can you tell us about those two guys that the Bears took in the second round?
Yeah, I think at various points, people in football thought both guys could be first-round players, especially Kyler Gordon. I mean, his old coach at Washington, Jimmy Lake, who had been in the NFL, and Jimmy Lake is as good a DB coach as there is in college football. And he's been around a lot of big time players. And you can look at, whether it's Budda Baker, a bunch of different guys who've gone on to have good NFL careers. And he said Kyler Gordon is probably the most athletic guy he's ever had. I mean, that's a big statement. He has kind of a funky background. He was, did Kung Fu when he was younger, dance background, just super flexible kid. Both cornerbacks, they were really good. I think it was kind of pick 'em, depending on McDuffie versus Kyler. But I think he's a guy who's going to be a really good NFL cornerback, especially I think so much crazy stuff was going on around the Washington program really the last year, and it kind of engulfed it. And I think it was hard for somebody like that probably just to sustain it in that. But I think he's a really talented kid. I think that's a good value where they got him. As far as Brisker, Penn State had a really good secondary, and I think he's a dynamic athlete. I know sometimes people look at safeties and like, okay, there's not as much of a premium on them, but I think he's a really explosive kid. I could see him having an impact right away. I think he can do a lot for teams. I think he was really well coached back there, and he played against a lot of really good receivers in the Big Ten. So I think those are really good picks that they took when they got those guys.
I love your annual freaks list that you come out every year with on the Athletic, and Brisker's on there, Gordon's on there, and there's another guy in Dominique Robinson. I'm curious what you could tell us about him, as he comes from Miami, Ohio, former quarterback turned receiver. Now he's a former receiver turned defensive end, came back there for his 5th year of eligibility. What do you know about Dominique Robinson and like getting on that freaks list? What do these guys like bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, you saw the vertical jump is through the roof for a guy who's an edge guy to be in the 41-inch range is pretty remarkable. And so all those numbers, the guys I know at Miami, Ohio, really raved about him. What was interesting to me was I did a Draft Confidential story from talking to NFL coaches and scouts I know the week leading into the draft. And I asked one of the guys who I've known for like 15 years, I was like, who do you think is the biggest sleeper in this draft? And he loved this kid. And he said, what you have in him, he said, a lot of times when you get a guy who may be super athletic as an offense, as a receiver, and then they flip-flop over defenses, how physical is he going to be? Maybe, you see the athleticism, you see the burst, but is there kind of an edge to him? And he goes, I totally see it with this kid. He said, I think he is going to continue to get better and better and better. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he went in the early 3rd round, just because of somebody taking a chance. There's certain edge guys who are like, people are looking about upside, and you're talking about he's pretty rare athletically. And if he has the toughness, the fact that he played quarterback, he has a little more awareness probably than a lot of other guys. I think that he was able to transition from different positions. I was surprised he lasted as long as he did, quite frankly.
What type of vibe did you get maybe before and after the Senior Bowl, where he goes down there, plays better competition, and really seemed to cement himself as at least a day 3 pick for some teams?
Yeah, I think people knew in scouting circles, ooh, this guy is a freaky athlete. I don't think they realized in terms of just how good of a football player he is and can be. I think that was kind of like, wow, you got an interesting piece of clay here. And it's also, there was a lot of guys in this draft, edge guys, where I think they had, either a guy had really good film, or they had great length, or they had great explosiveness, or they were just kind of a high motor guy. But there weren't that many guys where you'd say, okay, this guy is checking off all the boxes. And I think in this case, you have a guy with, elite athleticism. And I think he's intriguing because you're saying, okay, he really hadn't played that much defense, but what he did do, he seems like he's responded really well, and he's got an edge to him, which again, for offensive guys, that is the biggest concern. And I think he's checked off the boxes for football people. So now it's like, okay, how quickly can he learn a system and fill into a role that we're going to expect him to come in and be a difference maker on 3rd downs?
So going back to Gordon and Brisker real quick, what was it about them that got on the freaks list?
In the case of Gordon, you're talking about a guy who's like a 42, 43-inch vertical jump guy, but also, like I said, when Jimmy Lake says he's the most athletic defensive back I've ever had, I mean, that is a huge statement to make. I mean, Jimmy Lake has been around so many elite players, especially in the secondary, that alone pretty much carried him there. In Brisker, we've had a bunch of Penn State guys on there, whether it's Mike Gesicki or Saquon Barkley or Owe, a year ago, who was an amazing, who went to the Ravens. And I think this guy is another one. And usually those Penn State guys, the crazy thing with them is, as eye-popping as the numbers are, we see what Micah Parsons, does and has done. But they go to the workouts and the combine and they back it up. And I think in Brisker, again, people look at that team, and I think it's been up and down. 2 years ago in the pandemic, there is no Micah Parsons. He doesn't play. Journey Brown, who is arguably the most talented running back in the country, right before the season, he has to retire because of health issues unrelated to COVID. And that kind of gutted their locker room, just really was hard for them. And then this year, I feel like it was an up and down year where, so sometimes somebody like that, I think if they were at, as a top 10 team, I think there's just more eyeballs on them and a little bit, and maybe kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And I think that's just kind of what happened with Brisker to some degree.
The Bears only took one receiver, despite it being kind of a major need going into the draft. So, like, a lot of eyes, maybe unfairly, are on Baylen Jones Jr. a little bit. And I know you saw him a little bit more out there on the West Coast. So for like a player to become the special teams player of the year, in the Pac-12, and then become the special teams player of the year in the SEC, like, what are the Bears getting at returner and then potentially at receiver in Baylen Jones Jr., in your opinion?
Yeah, they're definitely getting an elite return guy. I remember, T. Martin was one of the guys who helped get him to USC. T. Martin's, everybody remembers, him leading Tennessee to a championship, and now he's an assistant coach with the Ravens, but he's from Mobile. That's the area where Baylen Jones is from. He's not a small kid. I mean, he's pretty sturdy. I don't want to say he's going to be like Deebo. Now, that's going to be the hot thing. You heard that with Trey Burks. You've seen people throw that around, even, last year the Giants took kind of an X factor guy who it's like, we'll scheme ways to get him the ball because maybe he's not a polished route runner, like, what you saw with Tony. I think in Baylen Jones, you saw him go from one system at USC where it was like, how many ways can we get him the ball? And you also, when he was at USC, you got to remember, they had some real studs out there. He was competing for time. It was Pittman. It was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tyler Vaughns was a really good player, and then obviously Drake London was coming up. In the case of, he goes to Tennessee, it's a more wide open offense. It has elements of that old Baylor offense, which, it's not traditional routes, but I think it's, again, a guy with really good with the ball in his hands, really explosive. I'm not saying, we've seen these receivers who kind of become de facto running backs. I don't think that's necessarily going to be him, but I think he's a guy who could be really a developmental guy, and he will help you immediately on special teams.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's kind of the plan of what the Bears are talking about using him for. Another guy they got in the 7th round that I know you have some background on is Elijah Hicks, another safety. And, it's interesting. A lot of times when you take a defensive back or really any position in the late rounds, you might just be taking a flyer on him. But, I've already heard that they're really surprised that he didn't get more pre-draft publicity or hype. And I know he was dealing with an injury during all that. But for him to still be available in the 7th round, I know the Bears were over the moon about that. What do you know about Hicks?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, going into I think it was coming out of 2019 season, I did a big story for The Athletic on Ashton Davis, who was the other safety there, and he ended up going to the Jets. And Ashton had a really fascinating story, but I got to spend a lot of time with his best friends there, and his best friends were Cam Bynum, who's now in the NFL, and also Elijah, who's obviously now the Bears took. And those guys are awesome kids. I remember spending time at Elijah shared a place with Cam, and they would just sit there on Saturday nights and they would watch NFL film that they got, or all 22 that their position coach, Gerald Alexander, who had left there eventually and went to the Dolphins as a DB coach. And they just really were students of the game, and they just devoured everything they could find on it. Really mature kids, great off the field. Elijah's done a lot of really awesome work to help disadvantaged youth, people with all sorts of challenges, especially in the pandemic. The people at Cal could not stop raving about both him and Cam, especially character-wise. And so when you watched him on the field, especially, Cam was a guy who ended up, he played corner. He's really smart. He was a smooth athlete. I don't think he was like a wow athlete. Like Ashton was a legit big time track guy. Cam wasn't that, but it was like, okay, they've really been coached well. They're really football savvy guys. I think they're all really probably safeties at heart because of how they see the game. I think Elijah is definitely that. He can be physical. He's a Southern California kid who, could have gone pretty much anywhere, but ended up wanting to play for Cal. And I think he really bought in, and I think he was well coached. I could see him having a really long career in the NFL because he's really smart. He is a good athlete. He's not a wow guy, but he's just a really, really smart, mature player. And, those guys usually are able to stick because they will find a way to be a real asset in the locker room. And I think he'll be that. I mean, he is a good athlete. As you said, he was banged up a bunch, but he was really, really productive player and had a really good career there for a while on teams that, that didn't have the best supporting cast, but in the secondary, they were really good and he was really well coached.
Bruce, one more question just about maybe the draft in general and what the Bears did. I feel like, at least in Chicago, there's debate about what Ryan Poles did, at least on day 2, going from 6 picks total all the way to 11 by trading back several times on day 3, just in terms of maybe deepness, whether it's offensive line, running backs, maybe the lack of options on day 3 at receiver. What do you think the Bears accomplished? Like, what do you think of their draft overall, the first one under Ryan Poles?
I really like it in the secondary because I think they got 3 guys who will end up being key contributors and play for a while there. The wild card to me is the 2 small school offensive linemen. They're both athletic. They both, one's Southern Utah, the other one's Southern. I will see how it works out with them because, if you get guys who end up being developmental guys and they can compete for starting jobs in maybe 2024, 2023, where you get them, that's a big deal. Like, I think, when you get somebody like Dominique in the 5th round, that I think he can be a guy who you can do a lot with, not just rush the quarterback, but maybe drop into coverage. Obviously, as a receiver, there's a unique skill set that he's bringing. I think that's definitely a really good gamble. It's a really interesting draft because if you told me that we were watching on Sunday nights, a lot of Baylen Jones highlights over the fall, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, USC people thought he was like the fastest guy they had and one of the most dynamic athletes in the program. It was just like, can he put it all together? And there's just a bunch of really interesting players in terms of, you have, as you mentioned, a bunch of freaks guys. Baylen Jones definitely could have been on my freaks list. And I think that, you want to bet on a couple of things. You want to bet on athletes on the development side. And I think you want to bet on, if you can, the character guys. And I look at some of the guys they got, especially Elijah, getting him where they got him. I think that, I think those are good gambles to make.
That's awesome insight, Bruce. We appreciate it. And of course, our listeners should be following you on Twitter at Bruce Feldman, CFB. You do a great job on Fox and all the stuff you write for The Athletic. So we appreciate you jumping on today. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, guys. Always
Thank you,
enjoy
Bruce.
it. All right. See you guys.
Our next partner has a product I use literally every single day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health, a better immune system. I was tired of taking all those pills and vitamins. I just wanted more energy. So what's in this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the good things that you want. It's lifestyle friendly too, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything while still tasting good. It costs you less than $3 a day. How about that? So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the cold and flu seasons. It's just 1 scoop into a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 free year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Adams. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Adams to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Is your company or business having a tough time hiring the people you need? There are 46% more jobs being posted than before the pandemic, and there are 44% fewer candidates applying to each one. So you need to find the right candidates and hire them fast. Workable can help. Workable accelerates every step of your hiring process, from the find to the hire. Workable helps you cast the widest net possible by posting your jobs to all the top job boards, more than 200 total, with just one click. It helps you evaluate and hire quickly with modern tools like video interviews and e-signatures. And Workable will help you automate repetitive tasks like scheduling interviews so you can spend more time on what's important, making those right hires. So whether you're hiring for a coffee shop or your engineering team, Workable is exactly what you need to hire the right people and fast. Starting today with a risk-free 50-day trial, if you hire during the trial, which many do, it won't cost a thing. Just go to workable.com to start hiring. Workable is hiring made easy.
Interesting little nugget there, I thought, in that last answer from Bruce. He kind of likes Baylen Jones Jr. You could tell.
Yeah, I think the Bears really like Baylen Jones Jr. Of course they do. They drafted him, but usually you get, I think you brought this up a couple podcasts ago, you get a feeling about the projection the team has for him, the value they have almost immediately for him. And I think it's higher than Bears Twitter wants to give the Bears credit for him, just in terms of what they think they can get out of Baylen Jones Jr. this year, starting this year, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he's clearly in the mix early. I'm interested to hear what Nate Tice has to say about him too, since he comes, from an offensive background and has seen him play too in college. And really, that's what this podcast is all about. You've heard everything we have to say about these guys, so getting insight from both Bruce Feldman and Nate Tice. So, without further ado, are we sure we got him? Are we sure?
Okay. Yep. A thumbs up.
I think we do. Here's Nate Tice. Now to welcome Nate Tice back to the podcast. You could follow him on Twitter at Nate_Tice. He's now full-time at The Athletic and much, much harder to book now. It's unbelievable. What's up, Nate?
How you doing? I know. All of a sudden becoming official. When you're running for a Substack and you're your own boss, it's kind of nice. It's like, I'm not going to do anything this week. I'll just do a podcast and hang out the rest of the week. But now it's like, oh no, this whole thing called scheduling and actually staying on that schedule. Yeah. My podcast time really dwindled. And so I feel good that I'm finally back on the show. It's not as exciting as the post-draft show last year after the Justin Fields talk, but selection. So, a little less than that, but yeah, good to be on, good to be full time.
All those Slack messages. I know.
The tabs have to be open now. What I've bookmarked has completely changed. I had to redo all my bookmarks so I could open the Slack, open WordPress up. It's like, oh man, I feel official.
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, congratulations. Welcome to our lives. It's
yeah.
So I want to start with this. Because you live in Las Vegas. What was it like having the draft there?
It was good. I always avoid the strip anyways. Most locals do. So how I could tell something's going on, well, one, my wife works on the strip, so maybe that's one indicator. But we had our Airbnb to do our draft show with Dane Brugler and Robert Mays. It's about 20 minutes. There's never really traffic here. Like, it's not too bad. Like, traffic is like kind of more like slow down. You never get that kind of locked traffic unless there's an accident. And no crap. That's why there is traffic, because there's usually an accident. But like what should have been 20 minutes took me about 45. And that was like, what was my first indicator? I was like, oh my God, there's people here. Like actually like a whole glut of people. And there's like 450,000 or 500,000 people came into town, which is just ridiculous. And also the Super Bowl is the corporate event. The draft is the fan event, so how you can tell really is the hotel rates. So like the high-end casinos, like the Wynn and everything stayed about the same. The Bellagio stayed about the same. But all those kind of mid-level casinos, the Circus, the New York, the Harrah's, those shot through the roof. So because it's not the corporate sponsors coming, it's the fans coming. And yeah, it was like the fan Super Bowl. And I mean, it was probably they were in heaven through those 3 days here.
as you're tracking it, watching it, blogging it, live blogging it, what would have you thinking about what you're going to say with Mays and Dane later? Like anything surprise you, shock you? What didn't you like about how the draft unfolded early on, first round, second round? What stood out to you?
I was the quarterbacks like dropping, I kind of deep down kind of figured that might happen. It was really, I was squinting. The only one I even had a borderline first round grade on was Desmond Ritter. And all the rest of the guys I had as third round grades or borderline second, third round grades. So I actually made me feel a little better because I was like, that's how I felt about him. And I'm starting to hear Malik Willis is going number 2. He's going number 9. We might have 5 quarterbacks in the first round. And I was just sitting there like, am I going crazy? Like, I know I'm a little like, I know that there's some inflation on these quarterbacks, but this is getting a little crazy. But that was interesting. I thought there might be a little more action in the top 10 as far as like a trade up. I thought someone would get really crazy for one of these receivers because everybody had them kind of slotted about the same, but it was more of the eye of the beholder. So I thought the first top 10 would be a little less, I would say chalk, but a little more like, ooh, maybe there's a big move up. But then once we got to the teens, there's a little bit more action. But this draft was a weird draft. There wasn't a lot of blue chip talent, and there's a lot of guys that a lot of people had in the same tier, but then how you ranked them was different. And we saw that kind of unfold with some of the positions, especially quarterback and receiver. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but it was kind of like, it was a weirdly chalk draft and a draft that I thought fireworks would happen and good or bad.
I got to follow up for you then. And I think I know what your answer is going to be. How would Justin Fields compare to the guys that were drafted this year? And then maybe project them a little bit to the guys that I know you've watched for next year. Like, what do the Bears still have in Justin Fields, even though it's a different regime?
And also, where would he have gone in this draft?
Oh, 1-1. or not, or whoever moved up to 1. So maybe 1-2 if it was the Lions. Fields, I still stand by this. I obviously have been on the show and have touted my like and love for Justin Fields. I still had considered him closer to Trevor Lawrence than any of the other guys in the last class. And I still stand by that. And comparing him to this class, like Ritter was my QB1. He would have been QB5 in last year, in between Zach Wilson and Mac Jones for me. I think he had a little bit more creation than Mac Jones, but Fields would have easily stood on top because I think he's a full tier better. Looking at grading in general, you kind of go a top 10 grade, a lottery pick grade, which is 1 through 20, and then, borderline first, second round. That's kind of how you tier the first rounders. And you'll hear a lot of teams go, oh, there's only 12 to 16 first round grades. Justin Fields to me is a true QB first round grade. And so there's none of that in this class to me. All the other guys were guys you had to squint to maybe seeing that. So I think Fields was easily tier better than this year's class. And then for next year's class, because I have an article coming out on the 2023 quarterbacks, and anyone watching the video right now, that's why there's rings under my eyes, not just because of the Kentucky Derby, but writing up on Tyler Van Dyke and all these guys. Maybe a little column A, a little column B. But watching this class, I would say Fields, I like Fields a little bit better than Stroud. Stroud was my QB1. Just looking at this first glance, these guys can go up through the roof or drop off a cliff. They have a whole nother year to develop. So we don't know. But at this point in time, I still think Fields is about a half tier better prospect than the guys coming out this next year. I think Stroud has some of the same issues that we said about Fields, where he bounces too long in the pocket, waiting for stuff to develop down the field. But having said that, he's a little bit smaller, doesn't have the same arm strength, and Fields is a little better athlete than him. And so he's a bigger athlete, bigger arm, and does it a little better. Stroud still can improve. He has a whole nother year, so who knows? Bryce Young is a $190. And in my article, the last quarterback taken under 200 pounds in the first round was Jim McMahon. So that was the last one, 1982, I believe it was. The last one taken in the first 3 rounds was Pat White in 2009 during the Wildcat days with the Dolphins. So he would be an outlier. But he's very fun. He does a lot of things well. But a team would have to swallow a big pill, or really, no pun intended. I guess he's small, but swallow a pill to like really, squint and get him and take him. But he's a really, really fun player. And there's some other intriguing ones like Will Levis from Kentucky and a couple other guys as well.
So before we get to some of the players the Bears drafted, I want to ask you then, what do you think the Steelers saw in Kenny Pickett that maybe you didn't see? looking at them, and because they're obviously in a very unique position with being in Pittsburgh with like basically the same facilities, for them to go ahead and take them in the first round. And then how do you see that playing out with our old friend Mitch Trubisky this year?
Pickett is accurate and he can create. And those are two things that will help him give him a chance, because when we think of guys creating, we think of guys scrambling to run and get yards with their legs, which Pickett can do. He's a good athlete, but he creates to throw. He likes to bail out of the pocket to throw and attack down the field, which is useful at the next level. What I was disappointed in Pickett, this is why I was lower on him than others, and people have said that he's the most pro-ready quarterback because he played Mark Whipple's system, was he was one and done on a lot of reads. He would go one, and then he'd go into scramble mode. And I didn't see him. I heard some Joe Burrow comparisons, and I just didn't see that at all, because Burrow is freaking a machine going 1 to 2 to 3, and then he creates. Pickett didn't really have that to me, but he's accurate and he's big, and I think a lot of his teammates like him. He would scramble for a first down. You can see all his teammates going nuts for him, which is always what you want to see with quarterbacks. I know it's the whole draft day joke about no one coming to your birthday party and all that, but there is some truth to it. But Pickett has that to him, and he's accurate. I've kind of made this joke. I can believe Tyler Haneke from Washington. He's a little better version of that, where it's like, okay, wow, he's making a play for us, and he can pinpoint all the 3 levels. And I would say his arm strength was above average to good. So that's what he brings to the table. He's a little bit more accurate than Trubisky ever was. He can actually throw to his left.
Hey now.
But Trubisky's a little better athlete, but they have kind of similar builds. But they kind of have that same kind of creation ability, where Trubisky would try and maybe scramble down the field while Pickett would try and look for something to throw when he's starting to scramble.
No, don't care.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, soundbite.
Well, that's just Mitch's response.
He's ready. Hey, if you listen to the reports out there, he doesn't mind that Kenny Pickett's there.
Love it.
And Kenny Pickett's ever growing hands.
He's double jointed.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't know that was an excuse. Yeah, my thumb's
right?
double jointed. My thumb's double jointed too, but mine were 9 1/4 somehow. So I don't know what his excuse was.
Yeah. The inner quarterback in you, when you look at Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, what gives you what makes you fear them a little bit? Like, what do the Bears have that quarterbacks won't like about them?
Yeah, they're tough, which I like, but I also like with them is, especially Brisker, is he reads the quarterback's eyes so well. It gets him in trouble. Actually,
you Wisconsin guys,
Wisconsin
know that well.
game, yes. I was going to say that was my first introduction to him, so he was in the back of my mind the whole time when evaluating him. But that's what he is. He's a very I wouldn't say aggressive, but he can be aggressive, but he reads the game very well. He's got good size. He does a lot of things well. He might not be the freakiest guy, but he's useful, and he can play in the slot. He can play in the post pressure. He can cover, and those guys, and what these defenses are becoming in the NFL, where nickels are becoming more safety body types because receivers are becoming bigger in the slot. They're power slots, the term I use, but they're becoming more big and physical, not the shifty Cole Beasley types. So now as you're getting safeties that can play in that position, it's huge. And the fact that he can do it, he can play close to the line of scrimmage. I would say he's above average as a cover guy. He's not, I wouldn't say a crazy cover guy. He wins because he reads the game so well, as opposed to like really twitchiness. But I really like Brisker. I really do. I know there's some disappointment including from me, about the offensive pieces that the Bears put around Justin Fields. But the fact was, these 2 DBs they took in the second round, I really like, because same with Kyler Gordon. I would prefer Kyler Gordon in the second than his teammate McDuffie in the first. I really mean that. I think Gordon has a little more growth to his game. He can also play in the slot, which is huge. He's a little more physical. He's got a little better size to him. And I think his game is still developing. And what they asked him to do as a corner at Washington, he actually had to read the game really well. It's going to translate really well to what the Bears want to do on defense. So I actually really like those 2 players, because they might not have that kind of crazy upside as maybe some of those guys that went in the first round, but I really do think they're good football players that really are going to bait some quarterbacks over the years.
Yeah, well, you said Brisker was in the back of your head. It's just too bad he wasn't in Graham Mertz's head, before he threw the ball.
On the same play, too. They repeated the play call, and Brisker was like, hey, that looks familiar. And it was like, and it was because the first one, I think he almost broke up. And so they repeated the play call, and it was because I could tell. I had no idea, but I could tell Coach Chris wanted to hit the backside on it. And it's like, Mertz was like, nope, I'm throwing the same ball. gonna throw a pick. And
Eh.
they should have, oh my God, I don't want to get into this, but they should have scored earlier. Remember, I think they had a fumble or something, right?
There was like 4 turnovers in the red zone in that game.
Oh my God. That
Yeah.
game was brutal. That game was brutal.
All right. Well, let's talk about the one weapon they did get, Justin Fields and Baylen Jones Jr., who started his career at USC and then ends up at Tennessee. Obviously, is a very good returner, but I think it's interesting how much the Bears have already kind of talked him up as a piece that they feel like they can work into the offense relatively quickly.
Yeah, I saw him as more of a day 3 guy. I think a lot of us did, us being me and draft Twitter. But that's my scouting department now. It's but no, with Baylen Jones he's a gadget guy, and that's how I described him. There is some intriguing parts about him. There's a kind of a working theory of mine to draft some of these Tennessee guys because their program was such crap for the last few years that you kind of, you get a little, the Trey Smith theory, get a little uptick once they enter the pros, and so has that working for him. Having said that, he also spent time at USC where he was the exact same player. And then what's nice is he can create he can create with the ball in his hands, which is always helpful, but he's very raw as a route runner, and he's in his mid-20s already. I think he's already off his parents' health care because that's how old he is. But also, it's just so he has that ability. He has some twitch to him. But to me, it's adding another number 3, number 4 type to a team that already has tons of number 3, number 4 types. I wanted more of a vertical guy, a ball winner type, an Alec Pierce type of guy.
Yeah.
The second round, I wanted those guys, I wanted those guys that can go up and get balls vertically down the field for Justin Fields and just attack. While this guy seemed more like a guy that would have fit what they used to do in the Bears offense, RPOs, underneath stuff, quick slants, let him go, bubbles, let him go, screens, let him go. So I don't know. He was an interesting fit to me. I think it was a little rich for my blood, but he at least isn't like worthless, which is what you hopefully want to hear because he has some stuff that he can create, but doesn't have a lot of true receiver to him.
I don't want to call it like a trend, but when you get Ryan Poles comparing him, he doesn't want to say he's comparing him, but he mentions Deebo Samuel, and obviously you can start making the connections. Luke Getsy to the Shanahan offense, and maybe they'll run some of the similar things. But Deebo's quite special in a lot of ways. Yeah, better. Yeah, better. Better.
Just
but
very, very good
finding
player.
guys who could just finding gadget guys, to stress out defenses in different ways.
Yeah.
Is it a trend? Like you see, it's thrown around a lot. I'm just curious your thoughts.
It's always a trend. Yeah, it's always going to be the exciting, different player, quote unquote, different player is going to be the new trend. I know when Brandon Cooks entered the NFL, we talked about how jet sweeps are going to take over the NFL, which I mean is still sprinkled in there, but it kind of feels the same, doesn't it? This is kind of if Baylen Jones is it Bayless or Velas? I've been calling.
It's actually Bayless.
It's Bayless. Okay, so what Bayless is. I think these teams, they didn't have a ton of weapons. At USC, they had some weapons, and then Tennessee, they didn't the last 2 years. He only had 4 rushing attempts in his 2 years at Tennessee. Those we knock coaches a lot, but some of them will just stumble their way into getting use out of these guys. They're like, hey, this guy's a great player. Let's find a way to get the ball in his hands. Like a guy that went in the 5th round, Khalil Shakir, was getting handoffs. They will find ways to get the ball in their hands. A lot of his stuff was more like some screens and some underneath stuff. So that's where it's like, yeah, okay, maybe at the next level we could dial it in, but I don't know. I think the college coaches would have done it if he could have done it at that level. And also the other thing is Deebo Samuel was 220 pounds. Baylen Jones is 200. And those hits add up, especially if you're not just doing jet sweeps on the outside and you're trying to do something in between the tackles. That's what Deebo is doing so differently, is that he's running legit handoff plays, counter, power, doing all those plays in between the tackles. And he's built like a running back, so that helps. But at 200 pounds, that's like, man, you do more than one of those, I'm scared. Scared he'll just, something's going to pop, not in a good way.
Well, Nate, I want to ask you this question because it's debated endlessly here in Chicago since the coaching change and the players who've been let go, and like Allen Robinson signing them at the Rams. And you mentioned earlier about how, you would have liked to see more weapons for Justin Fields, but knowing what you know about offenses, and we're all sort of sitting here guessing what Luke Getsy is going to do, right? But can the offense still be better than what it was without an abundance of weapons and with a lot of question marks on the offensive line? Another way of asking this question is, can Justin Fields still take that step forward just if the offense is like more competent and functional?
No, that's a great question. I do. I really do think that. I think there's been some misconceptions about what the Packers run on offense, because LaFleur has some Shanahan background and McVay background. They don't run a ton of outside zone. They sprinkle some outside zone in. It's an at-you run game. They run a ton of duo, which is basically power without the puller. Really in that stuff. They like to have the receivers come in and block. Like, it's a very at you and then play action off of that. And then, of course, with some drop back stuff, it's kind of a greatest hits offense, but the run game isn't really Shanahan run game. It's more of a just this is what we are run game. And actually, that's what I want to see. That's what really Ohio State's run game was with Justin Fields. And so I actually think kind of a less is more thing. That was always my criticism under Nagy, was that it just seems like he threw a bunch of stuff at the wall and was just like, hopefully some of it works. And every week it would look different about what they were running, and he was running too much quick game. And I think by taking some of that out and doing stuff that Fields is better at, which is, under center, run the play action, stuff that's down the field that he can go touchdown to check down. I think that's where Fields really excels. And that's what Rodgers does really, or what they've done with Rodgers in the last few years once LaFleur has gotten there, is they kind of like helped him out and made the reads kind of easier, or where he can really find some quicker throws, other than some, stuff in the red zone to Devontae Adams and stuff, but really more of a vertically based 3-pointers and then layups, underneath stuff, touchdown to check down. So I do think that's where I'm more optimistic about what this offense will look like, because that will help Fields out a little bit, and really just O-line teaching will help as well. I think maybe just honing in and getting competency at center, where actually, where stuff is going in the right direction, that'll help as well, and taking some load off of Fields as well.
How about coming in and just knowing you're the guy? That Andy Dalton's not there. Nick Foles is there to take random snaps away from you, throwing a bunch of again, Adam can play that sound, but again, wasting all our time in training camp. Like, what are we doing here? Just knowing that this offense is being what a waste of time training camp was, guys. That's what it was. But just going back to it, just you know what I mean?
It was a waste of time. Yeah,
you play quarterback, Nate. Like, just knowing you're the guy. Like, this offense is being built for me. I'm here to work with the ones. Even though there's questions about who they are, but these are my guys. Like, what does that do for him? Like, put yourself in Fields' shoes for a minute. Like, what does that do for him confidence wise?
Huge, because you're not checking over your shoulder now, and now you can take more risks, because if that risk doesn't work out, especially if you're attacking vertically, you're not going to get the hook right away. It helps so much. Even at my time at Wisconsin, I barely played, but the last year, Coach Chris I knew what my role was. And Coach Chris said, "Hey, you're the backup. Here's your 5 reps in each period." It helped me, because all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is his expectations for me, and this is what I have to do now. I don't have to worry about losing my spot. And now, as a starter in the NFL, when you're the guy, it helps build confidence, especially because now you can take risks. Now you can really build on your last stuff. It really helps watching film when it's your reps. And I'm sure when Fields, they're watching those game reps and he's watching Dalton, he's like, well, I wouldn't have done that. Like, that's a coaching point for Andy, but me, Justin Fields, I would have scrambled there. I would have hit the long ball. I wouldn't have checked it down there. So getting reps where it's him, watching himself, helps so much. I remember when Scott Tolzien became the starter, that was the joke he said at Wisconsin was, they go, how much better is it watching film? And he goes, well, it's a lot better when I get to watch 20 reps of myself instead of 2 reps of myself, because now it's him and how it translates, him making those throws, him making those mistakes, him making those good throws. So I think it just helps. It really, really does, especially when everybody's in lockstep about what you are. Now there's no divide in the locker room where people are going, well, Andy's a little better or Nick's a little better. Now it's like, no, Justin's our guy. So let's roll with him.
Well, and to that point, granted, it was just one random voluntary mini camp in the month of April, but like Fields got all the reps.
Great.
And I don't mean that literally. Like, I think there was a couple here and there that went to the 2 other quarterbacks on the roster, including Trevor.
Those were my reps in college. Those are
but I don't remember them. It was like the Justin Fields show out there, and I have a feeling like that's the rest of this offseason and into training camp. I'm sure there'll be a little bit more reps in training camp when you have more time and a little bit more going on. But that is something that we've already seen. Like there's no wasting of time anymore, Johnsy. So you can feel better about that.
I guess I'll attend it.
Those live bullets matter though, because now it's just tangible. It really is, because now it's not theory. It's not walkthrough reps where they're like, oh, we gave them reps, but 5 of them are walkthrough, against or routes on air or anything like that. It's the ability to make a mistake and come back and learn from it is huge, as opposed to making a mistake and they just go, you're out, next guy in, like that. Yeah, it helps.
It always bothered me that even when Fields started to outperform those guys in some practices where he looked like the better quarterback, there's never like a reward for it.
Yep.
Never was. It was same plan as always. And then there they are in Cleveland, and this is our game plan for you. Anyway, wrong topic. Back to the draft.
Well, that tape should just be banned from ever
oh my God,
being put on TVs anywhere. That Browns game.
Oh my God, that was that was brutal. That was almost honestly like, I remember. I think it was even worse. Actually, we did the live show after, because even like Robert said, he goes, it's like you're excited, but it's like dread. As you no, it's like this could go really bad, and it's like even if you had low expectations, it went even worse.
And it grew in the game. Like, yes. Oh no,
I'll never forget Dan Orlovsky fired Matt Nagy at halftime on Twitter, and like even in the moment you're like, oh, okay, settle down. Like it's week 3. Like, but then like, no, that game was a fireable offense right there. Like that's what it was.
The whole plan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. From the start. Exactly. So at least we don't have to relive that. Hey, Nate, we really appreciate it, man. Great stuff. It's awesome now having you on The Athletic full time, and our listeners that have enjoyed you on this podcast can now read all your stuff there. So I hope they're checking it out at theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Clients demand an instant response, but now more than ever, businesses are spread thin. If you're losing leads from visitors to your website or missing calls that could grow your business, you need to delegate those frontline conversations to the best virtual receptionist service, Smith AI. Smith AI provides businesses with award-winning virtual receptionists who handle your calls, chats, and texts to unlock business at a fraction of the cost of hiring an in-house staff. Smith AI is not your average receptionist service. Since 2015, they've combined the best receptionists across North America with AI technology for superior business communications and customer engagement. Their friendly and professional agents can screen leads using your custom criteria, schedule appointments on your calendar, and call back leads who complete your form. They have English and Spanish-speaking receptionists and will block spam for free, including all those annoying sales calls. They can handle all calls, after-hour calls, or just your overflow. Work uninterrupted, run your business with less stress, and get more leads from your marketing efforts. Smith AI pays for itself and then some with all the new clients their receptionists help you win. Never miss another lead. Plans start at just $240 a month, and our listeners will save $100 when you sign up using our promo code ADAM at smith.ai. Visit smith.ai to read 5-star reviews, and be sure to use our code ADAM, ADAM, to save $100 at sign up. Don't let another day go by. Try Smith AI. All right, well, circling back to what we were talking about in between Bruce and Nate. Nate didn't seem to like Baylen Jones as much.
Yeah. It's okay. It's the draft, though, right? 14th receiver taken. I like this nugget, though. Like, in terms of receivers taken on day 3, if you look at the past 5 years, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there were 11 receivers taken on day 3 of the draft. That is considerably lower than the past 5 drafts. So maybe...
Oh. So there were only 11 taken on Saturday.
Yes. Sorry, I know he was a day 2 guy, but if you get my point, just in terms of taking swings at receivers, adding depth at receiver. Obviously, guys like Baylen Jones Jr. had to move up boards if you wanted them.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, the Bears definitely like him. So he's in based on what the depth chart looks like. He's
starting.
He better be a key piece.
He's going to play.
We'll find out. We'll find out if that makes any sense or if it's worth it. But the Bears and their wide receivers. Fun episode today. I really enjoyed having those guys on, and Nate's a friend of the program, and hopefully Bruce is now too. So. Hope you guys all enjoyed that. Please follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. And let's see, we got the schedule coming out in a couple of days. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have an episode for you Friday morning in the aftermath of the Bears schedule coming out. It'll be a Friday episode this week as we break down and predict the whole season completely 100% accurately in May. Guaranteed.
14-2. What would be that? 14-3? 15-2?
Yes. Good math there, John Fox.
I was a math major. I wasn't actually, but
I'm excited for it. I like the schedule. Spend my whole day on Marriott.com.
It's true. Every little leak that happens, forget tweeting it. Oh, Marriott.
Yeah. Who needs to tweet that? Let's make sure we get that as soon as that Packer game comes out. Okay.
I got to get that right.
Can I get a hotel within 200 miles of Green Bay?
And if you're listening to this podcast, new friend of the show, whatever, that is the advice we have for you.
Yeah. But just don't take our rooms, please.
It's true. Go to Holiday Inns or something else.
Hilton, I hear they're great.
Do it.
Yes.
Do it.
The Marriotts, you want to stay away from the Marriotts.
Yeah, they're awful.
You don't want. Just stay away from the Marriott properties, please. All right. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns where you go to subscribe, and allchgo.com and Hilton.com for all your booking needs during the Bears schedule. We will talk to you guys later this week.
See ya.
Hey, so I've had my Helix mattress for a long time now and still love it just as much as I did when I first got it. It shows up. It's actually fun to unbox. You take it out and then you take the plastic off, and then it just sort of like inflates right in front of your eyes. It's pretty cool, but most importantly, it's very, very comfortable. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete, and it matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. It really works. Why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? With Helix, you're getting a mattress that you know will be perfect for the way you sleep, because everybody is unique and Helix knows that. So they have several different mattress models to choose from: soft, medium, and firm mattresses. Mattresses great for cooling you down if you sleep hot. Mattresses great for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains, and even a Helix Plus mattress for plus size sleepers. I took the quiz and I was matched to the Dusk mattress because it's firm, but it's not all the way on the firm side, and it's perfect for me. So if you're looking for a mattress, take the quiz, order the mattress that you're matched to, and the mattress comes right to your door, shipped for free. You don't have to go to the mattress store ever again. Just go to helixsleep.com/Adam. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz. They'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free, too. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but trust me, you will. Helix even has financing options and flexible payment plans, so a great night's sleep is never far away. And Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/Adam.